COVID-19 origins revealed. The public will soon gain access to intelligence on the potential origins of the pandemic. That's after President Biden just signed a bill to declassify the details. This follows rare unanimous bipartisan votes in both the House and Senate. At the center of the debate, the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Did the virus leak from the lab? Was it man-made, or did it jump through animal hosts? What do you think the intelligence will show? Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Virus origins back in the spotlight. President Biden Monday signing a bill calling to declassify COVID-19's origins, calling it essential to find out the origins of the pandemic to prevent another one. This follows both the House and Senate unanimously approving the measure in a rare moment of bipartisanship. The question now at hand, whether the pandemic was the result of a lab leak from China's Wuhan Institute of Virology or jumped from animals to humans at a Wuhan market. The topic remains a hotly contested debate, even among U.S. intelligence agencies. In 2021, Biden directed intelligence agencies to investigate COVID-19's origins. China has said there is no credibility behind the lab leak theory. Beijing's foreign ministry hitting back at the bill signed on Tuesday, calling on the U.S. to immediately stop political manipulation. And as for what declassifying the virus origin means for us and for China, we hear from James Gorrie, author of The China Crisis, writer at the Epoch Times and blogger at the Banana Republican. James Gorrie, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you back on the show.
Thanks, Tiffany. Pleasure to be here.
So President Biden did just sign to declassify the pandemic origins intelligence. This follows unanimous consent from both the House and the Senate. What might we achieve from this? What can we learn from this?
I think the timing is what we can learn from it. Given that last week, evidence has come forth from the Congress of actual bank statements showing the Biden family receiving payments in the millions of dollars from a Chinese energy company. So I think the timing is simply how do we, from the Biden administration's perspective, is to divert. In other words, let's talk about the disease, the source of the COVID, and declassify those documents rather than talking about the evidence that Congress is putting forward on bank statements showing them receiving cash from the Chinese.
And speaking of China, it seems there's a bunch of angles with that, right? There's also the National Institutes of Health and the money we've been pouring into the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which is at the center of this controversy. But with all of these different aspects, what about holding the Communist Party of China accountable? What do you see might happen in that area?
I think, again, this is artifice. I think we have to look at it as a way to divert attention. Now, as far as the National Institute of Health is concerned, the NIH, the whole gain of function, which again is part of the synthesizing process, or could be, that was covered by Senator Rand Paul in his questioning of Dr. Fauci back, I think, in November of 2021, where he talked about gain of function and had the paper trails and the admission from the Chinese scientists that, yes, we're doing gain of function and so forth. And as a result, the NIH literally changed the definition of gain of function on their website so as to not to contradict, as to keep Fauci in the clear, as it were, right? To not kind of convict him or catch him in a lie. What did our intelligence services know, and when did they know it? Think about this. If they say, oh, we've known it since 2020, since April of 2020, for example, or perhaps even earlier, that's during the Trump administration. That would vindicate Trump and make the Biden administration look horrible.
And James, with these findings potentially coming out, right, with this declassification, what does that mean for the American public? There's been talks about figuring this out or moving on. What's your take on that?
Well, I think it's going to be downplayed. The only reason it wouldn't be downplayed, in my mind, would be if there's political points to be scored and showing the Biden administration being tough on China. That may be, but that's after the fact, isn't it? After the paychecks, after the payoffs, after the business deals, and after the election. So the only forward thinking I could do on that would be, okay, Biden needs to look like an anti-China, like he's standing up to China. The Biden administration needs to be pro-America and standing up to China, and this may give them the opportunity to at least create the appearance of doing so.
James Gorrie, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Tiffany.
A top Chinese shopping app suspended from the Playstore. Google says the temporary halt is over security concerns after malware was discovered in certain versions of the app. A spokesman said those versions were not on the Playstore and that Google is investigating. The app is called Pinduoduo and boasts about 900 million users. It's one of China's most popular e-commerce platforms. Its success largely comes from a unique business model. Through group purchases, customers can recruit friends and family to bulk buy the same item and save money. The company responded to the Play Store suspension in a statement, saying it strongly rejects the speculation and accusation that Pinduoduo app is malicious, just from a generic and non-conclusive response from Google. The U.S. government has lately put more focus on strengthening cybersecurity and defense after labeling China and Russia as top hacking threats. Some background, Pinduoduo operates under a U.S.-listed parent company called PDD Holdings. Looking to mirror Pinduoduo's success outside China, PDD launched another online shopping platform in the U.S. last September called Temu. The one-stop shop carries products from home goods to apparel to electronics. So far, it's tallied 24 million downloads and 11 million monthly active users. The platform is reportedly planning an expansion to the UK, following jumps into the Canadian, Australian, and New Zealand markets. Temu remains available to download on Google's Play Store. A little more detail on Temu. Several Temu customers told us that the vast majority of the goods they bought through the shopping platform were made in China. But the online description gives no indication of where the products are made. A Chinese-American customer shared her experience about a home security camera she bought from the platform. She explained that when she tried to turn the product on, it directed her to scan a QR code and visit a China-based website. After she provided her email address and phone number, the website further requested the password to her home Wi-Fi network. Fearing her personal data could get delivered to Beijing, she returned the product. It's day 2 of Chinese leader Xi Jinping's state visit to Russia. The heads of both countries pledge friendship, but their talks yield breakthroughs over Ukraine. Here's Putin's latest update on a peace proposal from China.
We believe that many points of China's peace plan are in sync with Russian approaches and could form a basis for a peaceful settlement when the West and Kyiv are ready for it. However, we aren't seeing any such readiness on their part yet.
The details of China's plan aren't clear yet. Beijing earlier proposed a peace plan for Ukraine. That guideline includes abandoning the Cold War mentality and ceasing hostilities. Ukraine has rejected giving up parts of its territory for peace. On Tuesday, Xi Jinping also invited Russia's prime minister to visit China. He also called for regular meetings between top Chinese and Russian officials. Over in Europe, NATO head Jens Stoltenberg warning China against sending lethal aid to Russia. Stoltenberg said NATO hasn't seen any proof so far, but noted it has seen signs that Russia had requested weapons and that Beijing had been weighing its options. With these potential peace talks on the table, what's really happening here? And what should we expect given China's economic lifeline to Russia? We hear from Antonio Graceffo, China economic analyst and an Epoch Times contributor, for more. Antonio Graceffo, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you back on the show.
Good to see you, Tiffany.
So I want to zoom in on this Xi and Putin meeting happening in Moscow right now. It seems there's a lot on the table, potential peace or ceasefire talks about Ukraine, diplomatically and economically. What's your take on all of this?
China brokered this peace deal last week between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And now he realized that he can get a lot of positive reinforcement, recognized in the world as a peacemaker, and then they'll point at every American aggression, every war, and they're going to say, oh, look at the Americans, they make war and China makes peace because China's benevolent and great and only cares about helping the rest of the world. So now he's in Moscow, and one of the things that he brought up is that he's going to suggest his peace plan for Ukraine. Now, the issue with a negotiated settlement in Ukraine is that Russia invaded Ukraine. Ukraine is a sovereign country. All of Ukraine is a sovereign country. When you negotiate, this means you will give and take. One side gives a little, the other gives a little, you meet somewhere in the middle. There is no middle. Russia needs to just pull out of Ukraine. It's literally that simple, and then pay reparations to Ukraine for all the lives and destruction that they've taken there. And Zelensky even said about a week ago he wants Crimea back, which he rightly, that is within his right. That is his country. It was stolen by Russia, okay? So I don't see how she could effectively come up with a peace plan that would be acceptable to Zelensky.
It also seems another big part of this is the, say, economic part, right? So the West has levied so many sanctions on Russia, but China has kind of been a lifeline. So what do you see going on in that aspect going forward?
So the sanctions have really crippled the Russian economy. A lot of people are criticizing the sanctions, saying that they haven't had any effect and Russia's doing fine, and they're looking at the economic indicators. The truth is so far from what people are claiming. You know, the Russian economy was growing last year. The GDP was growing through November, but this was because we had record oil prices and because Russia was still able to export oil. So through November, it looked like the Russian economy was growing, everything was fine. In December, the Allies brought the gas price cap into effect, which means that Russia could not sell oil higher than $60 a barrel to Europe. Also, European and American flagships and European and American insurers will not insure any ship that's carrying Russian oil that was sold for a price over $60. Immediately in December, this already had a negative impact on Russia's economy. So in the first few months of the war, there were no shortages because they had all this stuff in stock. And now Russia is an industrialized nation. They have factories. They can build stuff. So then they start building stuff. And you still don't see shortages because they're baking their own stuff. However, they can't buy raw materials. So now you start to run out of raw materials. You start to run out of inputs. And one of the sanctions we have on Russia, of course, is the chip ban. And chips are in everything today. New car prices in Russia are up something like 50%, and they can't make a lot of the weapons that are being expended in Ukraine can't be replaced without chips. So that's why I believe this year the Russian economy is in dramatically worse shape than last year. And also just naturally, the market price of oil is down.
Antonio Graceffo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tiffany.
That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here after being demonetized for 2 years. Here's what to look out for in our second half. The standoff between China and its neighbors ramps up. Japan is getting proactive, making an unprecedented visit in Ukraine. And a European country boosts its support for Taiwan by sending a minister to the island for the first time in decades.
Global challenges need to be addressed globally.
The full episode is available on our partner platform, Epoch TV. To sign up, click the link down below. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. See you tomorrow.